Okay, we're on. Okay,
Okay.
hello everybody, and welcome to the Powered by Precision podcast. This week, just with Julian. Unfortunately, Mike's indisposed, so couldn't make it. But there's terrific news because this is our first podcast with a special guest, and I'm delighted to welcome Sue Spencer, known on Twitter by the greatest handle I've ever heard, Beastmodegrandma. So we'll talk about that in a second, Sue. And so similar themes to what we normally go through in terms of discussing fitness, but given myself and my interest in all things over 50s and particularly over 50s fitness, today's conversation will be a little bit more skewed towards that, and hopefully it's something you'll really enjoy. If you do, please click like, share, all the kind of buttons that are kind of above and below depending on which way you're accessing this podcast. So as I said, first of all, just a proper welcome to Sue, and I've also got to say thank you for getting up at for you an ungodly hour. So in your part of the world it is 5 in the morning or something like that?
Yeah. I live on the west coast of Canada, so a little bit of a time change.
Absolutely.
But I used to get up this early. I do my workouts and stuff like that first thing in the morning. So
yeah, inspirational stuff. So thank you very much for making the time to join. So I think, Sue, what would just be great is maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do, because it's a great story.
Well, I'm 66 and was never an athlete as a younger person. I am now for sure. But I didn't start even going to the gym, working out, anything like that until I was about 58. And kind of realized like, oh my gosh, 60's coming up pretty quick. And my daughter was pregnant with my grandson, and I thought, well, what's that going to be like? I was incredibly overweight and really didn't do much exercise or movement at all. So I started in the gym, and I really, I kind of did a couple of things. I made a decision that I was going to just say yes to opportunities that came my way and whatever the possibilities were from those. And so I changed my mindset really dramatically. I spent a bit of time really thinking about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, because even at less than 60, you still have like a good 25 years left. You know, people at 40 are always like, oh my God, my life is over. And I'm like, you're kind of halfway there unless you get really sick. So anyway, I sort of took that attitude. So when I went into the gym, I had no intention of working with a personal trainer. I just sort of committed to myself that I was going to do 18 months until I turned 60 of working out, and you know, things just sort of happened, and because I'd already decided I was going to say yes, I sort of did, and ended up working with this personal trainer that I worked with up until just 6 months ago, when he retired from personal training and has gone on to do some other things. And discovered I was really strong. And so out of that, to make a long story shorter, I started doing lifting and lost a lot of weight that I needed to lose, but more importantly, changed my eating habits, changed you know, just my routine of, you know, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and getting going and working out and doing stuff like that on my way to work. I'm retired now, so I can be a little bit more flexible with that. But I got myself into a really, really good routine, which was huge in my mornings. And I knew that if I did it on my way to work, I would do it. If I did it after work, you know, there's just so many times that you can find an excuse that there's something else that you got to do. So you're not going to do it. So after I'd lost quite a bit of weight, it took me about 18 months or so to lose the majority of the weight that I needed to lose. And my trainer said, you need a new goal, because that's what's really pushing you to make changes is having a goal that you're trying to hit. And I think that's true with anyone. It doesn't matter what your goal is, but you do need to have a goal. So I started thinking about what that might be. And my brother-in-law had been a swimmer in the World Masters Games in Edmonton years ago. And I thought, oh, I wonder if they have weightlifting. And I was thinking more like powerlifting, like the deadlift and squat and the bench press, because that's the stuff that we had done that far. And they didn't have that in the World Masters Games, but they had Olympic lifting, which is the same as what you would see when you watch the Olympics. Those are the movements, the snatch and the clean and jerk are what you see in the competition there. And so I walked into the gym and I just really naively said, you know, okay, I've got my goal. I want to go to World Masters Games in 2017 in New Zealand and do Olympic lifting. And he just sort of said, okay. He'd been an athlete, you know, in his youth, and you know, he's not that old. He's only 35 now, but he'd played ball and he'd played basketball and he'd done Olympic lifting when he was in college in the US. So he said, yeah, we can do that. So that was probably about maybe 2015, 2014 that we started that. And so I had no idea how technical the sport is. It's very, very technical, which has some really awesome side effects because you have to be so focused on what you're doing that mentally it strengthens your mind, it strengthens your memory, it strengthens your muscle memory for sure. But you know, I just spend that hour in the gym, I'm working on some particular movement and I'm done and I'm like, whew, that was like amazing. It was almost like meditating for an hour because you're so focused on what you're doing, all those other thoughts that of anything else going on in your life or around you, you just sort of, you don't notice. And so it's really a good healing thing that way, really good for your mental health. So I started doing that. I competed for the first time in 2016 when I was 62. And I did go to World Masters Games in New Zealand. I'm planning on going to World Masters Games 2021 in Japan next spring. That's sort of where I'm working towards now. With COVID, it's made some big changes, but yeah, I just discovered this Olympic weightlifting that seems like such an odd thing for someone my age to do just out of the blue, but I absolutely love it, and I love all the people that are involved in it. And there's a lot more women now because of CrossFit, because Olympic lifting is part of, you know, some of the things that they do in CrossFit, but it's just so amazing how many people there are. And actually not a lot of women my age. So yes, when I go, most likely I'm the only person in my weight class, because within an age class there's every 5 years there's a new age class, but also within, you know, in Olympic lifting there's also probably about 6 or 7 weight classes. So, you know, quite often you have nobody that you're specifically competing against to win a medal. So yeah, you know, like when somebody says, oh, you got a gold medal, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, yes, it's amazing because I have gone and done it, but I'm more focused on improving my lifts and just getting better and being able to lift heavier weights. But also I go in and I look at what the world record is, or the record for somebody in my age group in the past in that weight class, what they've done. And I just aim for how close I can get to do that, you know, whether I can match it or whatever. And when I went to the Pan American Games or Pan American Masters weightlifting last year in Orlando, I actually got 3 Pan American records, which was pretty cool. And one of them was actually a world record. And then when I went to the World Masters weightlifting in Montreal last summer, that one record that I had, I beat it by another kilo. So I've got a world record from the actual World Masters. So that was pretty cool. So it's
fantastic.
You know, judging from people that are younger, the weights that I lift are not that huge. For my age group, yes, they are. But I find it really exciting that I see all these women that are in their 40s and, you know, like the 40 to 45 age category, or 45 to 50 and up. Like, it's amazing how that group is growing. Like right now, there's probably, in my age group, there's probably about 10 women that regularly compete internationally. I don't know how many there would be that would do it locally, but there's about that, you know, say maybe 25 women total that do that across the world. Whereas when you get a few age groups down, there's just more and more women doing it because CrossFit has opened that up, that people have got interested in it and then started doing it. So it's pretty exciting to see that that's, you know, in 10 years from now, the women in my age class, it will be a much more robust group of people. And they probably will be lifting a lot more than what I'm lifting now because they'll have started a lot earlier doing it. So it's kind of neat to watch it. But man, there's a group of women that are in the 70 plus age category and they do some pretty good lifts. So it doesn't end. There's a woman that's in her mid 70s now that started when she was 70. So
wow.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's particularly inspiring about your story is obviously, you know, picking something else up at an age when society in so many ways is kind of kicking people to the curb or making you think it's all a bit too late. So kind of defying and kind of redefining what that means is incredible. And I think the goal setting kind of part, because we talk a lot about midlife and beyond, and so actually to have started something, done what you'd wanted to do first of all, and then kind of decided, okay, what next, and then set your bar even higher is kind of something inspirational. Can I just ask a question linked to that, Sue? Because actually, in terms of the level of training, you're very modestly describing your weights as not being that huge compared to others. But I mean, if you could just give us a sense of the kind of ranges of weights and actually the level of training, because the technical parts you've touched on, I think I'd love to hear a bit more about that because that's fascinating. But actually, this is something you're pretty committed to in terms of what you're doing on a day in, day out basis.
Yeah. So, well, when I started working out 3 days a week with a trainer. And then, you know, I wouldn't say I was obsessed with it, but I think because it was so new to me, I went 6 days a week and sometimes 7, and almost thinking that, you know, like, oh my gosh, I need to keep going because if I don't, then I'm gonna, you know, like stop doing it. Because people are always like, oh, I've heard that story before, that you're gonna go to the gym or, you know, like, or you're gonna do something in particular. So to begin with, I, you know, I did other exercises and stuff like that on the other days, but I've always worked 3 days a week with a trainer. And when he stopped training in December, I had a whole bunch of other things that went on, like my mom passed away, and then I decided I was going to retire. So, and then COVID, of course, has just shut everything down. But I do have a gym in my living room. People think I'm kind of quirky and weird, but that's what it's like. I've got a weight rack, and I've got a 35-pound barbell and weights, so that I could actually lift 135 pounds with the bumper plates and stuff like that if I was doing that. And I've got other stuff. So I kind of equipped myself. Luckily, I had some stuff, but I equipped myself before the shutdown happened here in mid-March. So I've had stuff that I've been able to use. So, but it's still, you know, motivation, going to the gym and your routine really makes a difference. So when the gyms here opened again, um, I made a point of going every day. Until just recently, I've actually gone every day because I wanted to get back in the routine, and also make sure that my strength was back to where it had been. Because, you know, when you're not doing anything, you've got really good muscle memory usually, but you know, like if you sort of slack off for 6 months, then you can't expect to be, you know, back where you were before. So I did that, and I've just started working this week with another trainer, and so a lot of it I'll do on my own. She's building programs for me, and then once a week or so, we'll connect up and do a session together. So, because I find as you get older, for me anyway, I do much better if I'm doing something wrong and somebody corrects me. It doesn't matter what it is. If you get that correction right away and then you correct it, then you move on to doing things better. Whereas if you know, are just sending the video to someone and like a week later they're like, oh, that was wrong. Well, then you've already imprinted in your mind that
Gotcha. Yeah.
that you're doing it that way. So that's been a challenge for me, definitely, because I just didn't have any sports background. So when I started, like everything was new, and I'm definitely testament to the fact that if you know, are bullheaded enough to keep going, you actually can learn a complete new set of, you know, muscle memories. You know, you're either fast twitch or slow twitch, and if you're slow twitch, then you kind of need to get some keys to be able to help you do the other. So yeah, I generally I'm pretty diligent about being active 5 days a week at least now, or 6, um, if I can. I have a stand-up paddleboard that I bought after I retired, and I live quite close to the ocean. So um, I've been using that, and that's really good for core strength and stuff
Wow.
like
Wow.
that.
I just love the way you kind of, there's always something incredible extra that you kind of just slip in around a bit of stand-up paddleboarding, which just, I think standing up would kind of finish me off, but I mean, more than I was
Yeah.
before. I kind of just explore a bit further, Sue, because I think the sort of inspirational kind of part of it, and the sort of setting your mind to go and do something and then moving it on, which I think is sort of quite relevant to what we try to do with this podcast. So one of the bits that I'm fascinated by was, what were the sort of the triggers? So you've kind of talked a bit about the triggers to go and start, but actually in terms of maintaining that motivation and going, because quite often what you'll find is people will think, you know, I need to go and lose some weight, or I've got a problem or an issue or something's kind of bugging me, I want to go and do it. But then quite often people will start and then kind of slow down or stop. But as for you, it's the opposite. You've kind of made your mind up, you've started and you've gone all in, and then all in again to the point where you've got all that stuff in your living room. So what was the sort of trigger? What was the sort of motivation? What were the sort of tips that maybe you could share that that might help other people who are
Well,
thinking about things but haven't quite gone that far yet?
it definitely is just really a change of mindset. And you know, like I said at the beginning, I made that decision. I was just going to say yes to opportunity. And you know, it doesn't matter what age you are. You know, when somebody's got an illness, and you know, somebody will give them, you know, like a headache or something, and someone will say, well, you know, have you tried this, have you tried that? And they're sort of like, oh, no, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. They're not willing, you know, like they're willing to complain, but they're not willing to actually do any action to try and help themselves. And I think that's sort of the nature of most people, that the easier way is to not do action. And so because I changed my mindset to that, I was going to say yes to opportunity, then it kind of shifted the way I thought about things. So, you know, like when I first went to the gym, the manager was showing me around, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't use some of those machines because of my knees. And he's like, oh, well, we have a guy that can help you with that. So I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
then it snowballed. And then once you start doing that, it's like anything that is a routine, you know, once you build your routine, then it's easy to keep it up as opposed to starting it. And so, yeah, it just sort of snowballed. And I think that that's the thing. Once it starts to snowball, you also see, you start to see some real dramatic results. You lose weight, you're stronger, your mind is clearer, all different things for, you know, depending on what you're doing. And I think that that's sort of a push that for me, that really helped me, you know, like, oh, well, hey, this is actually working. And so you keep going and keep going, and then it just becomes habit. For me, exercise is part of my day now. And I can remember thinking years ago, like, oh my God, why do these people need to have a gym in the hotel when they travel? Like, that's so ridiculous. Well, now I have to have a gym in a hotel when I travel because it's important. It's it's not that you're obsessed with working out. It's part of your daily routine. And if your daily routine is to get up and have a coffee and read the newspaper and then go for a walk, that's part of your routine. And that's what makes the rest of your day successful. So I think that that's, for me, that was definitely it. And, you know, I've had people sort of say to me like, oh, I could never do that because, you know, I couldn't leave my family in the morning and just, you know, go and do that. And I happen to be single, so, you know, doesn't matter. But, you know, like you know, like it doesn't matter. You have to have your own me time. And I think the older we get, the more important having that self-care and personal time that you look after yourself. And I don't mean like somebody getting a pedicure, a manicure, or a haircut. I mean, really spending time looking after yourself. And whatever that might be, whether it's taking the time to sit and read a book or do some meditation or journaling or getting out and doing some kind of movement or all of those, that's what we need to do as we get older, because I think that's how you become a healthy older person.
It's fascinating. And again, as you say, it seems to make an awful lot of sense. So if I can kind of ask you a sort of final question, because that's been fascinating and really, really helpful and useful for everyone who's going to be listening. So I guess it's what's next, Sue? Because you're obviously, as you said, once you set your mind to something, you're very strong. So you've got Japan lined up for next year, but you don't strike me as someone who's kind of just going to do that and then worry about what's next. So is there anything else in your mind about future goals or
Well,
challenges?
I have a company that I'm in the process of making into something that's viable and continues on. And it really just deals with helping people that are like me, that, you know, like, because there's hundreds and thousands of people who are older that were athletes and were active when they were younger and just need to continue on. But I think I'm a bit of an anomaly in a lot of ways in that I didn't start until I was later, and I found success at being active. And, you know, I don't look like an athlete, but I can assure you, you that I am. And I think that there's so many of us, particularly women, that go through menopause and get to this point where they're like everything's changing for them, and they're not sleeping well, and then they're thinking, well, what's left? You know, is this the end of my life? You know, is it over? I've heard people say that, and I just think like, oh, heck no, you know. So helping people just sort of build some strategies of how to make some changes in their life and how to continue on. So my my company's name is Lift You Up Coaching, and I go by that on Instagram as well as on Twitter. But Beastmodegrandma is also my my Twitter handle, as well as on Instagram. I kind of have connected the Lift You Up coaching and Beastmodegrandma on Instagram because Beastmodegrandma is such a fun name that I didn't want to lose it. I figured somebody would snatch it up pretty quick when if I got rid of it. So.
Yeah, well, I say it's a sensational name. Well, look, that's fantastic. I'd just like to say thanks very much indeed for the time again, Sue. That's been a really interesting conversation. As I said, if everyone's watching or listening, you've heard anything that you're interested in finding out more, please follow us around all the links that will be kind of above or below this when you find it on social media. And the hope is we'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time with Mike, who's hopefully back in business. But thanks very much, Sue. Good luck with everything. And
Thanks.
Yeah, been a pleasure.